The True Ambition podcast with John Zink is brought to you by IT Avalon. IT Avalon, IT staffing and professional services done right. Visit our sponsor at itavalon.com. Now, welcome to True Ambition.
Welcome to the True Ambition podcast. My name is John Zink, and today I am honored to be joined by Cory Hildebrand. He is the managing director of cybersecurity at Charles Schwab, and he is a Desert Storm veteran. He is a board member of the VP MMA. He was born in, I hope I say it right, Wenatchee, Washington, lives in Phoenix, Arizona. He's got a bachelor's degree in information technology management. His wife is named Deborah, and he's got 4 kids, Brandon, Ashley, Ryan, and Claire.
Correct.
Thanks so much for being here, bro.
Thank you, man. Good to be here.
That's great to have you. Now, you and I met through the VP MMA.
Correct.
One of my clients / friends, Michael Donnelly, who is also a member of the VP MMA, said, "Hey, Jay-Z," because him and I have golfed together before for SVB events and events that my company's had. And he's a good golfer. I'm a crappy golfer. Yeah, but he knows I'm always up for a good cause and a good time. So he said, "Hey, you need to get in touch with Deborah and Cory, the Hildebrands, because we've got this inaugural event coming up." And he just wanted me to golf. And I said, "Well, I want to know about this VP MMA." So I want to go right to the horse's mouth here. Tell the folks about the VP MMA.
The VP MMA is a nonprofit that basically it's Veterans Project Management Mentorship Alliance is what it stands for, and it takes vets leaving the military and their families and puts them through a mentorship program that teaches them project management skills. And it teaches them the project management skills from beginning to end, and then helps work to get them employment after the military, and translates a lot of the skills you get in the military into what that means and how to put that on a resume and make you more marketable, make you more enticing for corporations that are looking for the skills of project management, basically. And a lot of things we do in the military is all about, getting the job done and finding a way to get the job done. And there's I don't think a better way to transition from the military in most things that we do, other than running into the project management field. It's a good field for those that don't know how to translate their skills into civilian life. And we work really hard at that.
Well, it's a good thing because I've seen it. I own an IT staffing company, and I've seen many times where we really struggle to, with our clients, really to find a way to fit people who are coming out of the service or out of the military into these civilian jobs. All of our people are contractors, and sometimes it's really tough. So you guys actually in the VP MMA assign a mentor to these folks to help them?
Yeah, so a mentor that has business experience, that's in the business, that has either project management skills or leadership skills, that can mentor someone for 30 to 45 days between transition. Usually we'll try to do the period in which you're on terminal leave. So even before you get out. So when people go on terminal leave, they have a bunch of leave set up, and it's time that you're transitioning while you're still getting paid by the military. And that during that terminal leave period, they'll take them under their wings and they'll talk to them and get them into a project management mindset and things that businesses are looking for, and just kind of get them prepped for the civilian world and kind of assign a person to that success of that veteran.
I love it. So we're really happy to be involved in that. Because of COVID, there was supposed to be a golf tournament last year. It got pushed off twice, and then hopefully it's going to be in April?
In April now is when we're going to put it on again. Yeah.
Yeah, so can't wait for that, and can't wait to meet all the people who are involved in VPMMA, and then really get this thing going, because I think it's something that's really, really needed, and I'm glad to be a part of it. So now you're at Charles Schwab, and you are managing director of cybersecurity. That's got to be a handful in the time of COVID.
Yeah, and most people understand that when things transitioned, you have a very large company, and almost all large companies have a pretty robust kind of remote access methodology, especially with working remote and the different ways that we can work nowadays. But a lot of companies didn't have the robustness of taking 3 to 5% of your remote workforce and turning it into 95 to 98% of your workforce overnight in a multinational organization where trading actually got stronger, more volume, more calls, all of that thing. But imagine taking a call center and transitioning a call center where someone's sitting in an office with all the services and all the applications, and then taking that and trying to transition that to a completely segmented, isolated environment where you don't have managers that can easily help with a problem. You've got technology challenges related to how do you get queues into calls when our customers call us. Those are huge transitional things that we had plans for. We just didn't have plans at the scale in which we saw. So we went through a few months there of transition. My team specifically worked. We're lucky enough to have some people that can work remote and not work remote. But what the difference is you run projects, you run operations, you run different things, and without the ability to sit down in a room and really knock some things out, you find that what would take normally 30 minutes to 45 minutes, by the time you schedule the time and get everyone on a call and do different things, then your world changes quite a bit. And time from that would have taken a half hour takes an hour and a half, or 3 meetings take 1 meeting, because not everyone can be there. So there's challenges with it, but we've done a pretty good job of managing it overall. One thing that we do see a lot of is, like all companies, is everyone now is not only a worker, but they're a father, they're a teacher, they're a doorbell answerer that they never had to be. They're a phone ringing from someone that has nothing to do with work, and the confusion related to technology. Some of us are good with technology, others aren't, and they're good at doing certain jobs, but technology is really challenging to them. So getting them kind of comfortable with the area, what is a work call compared to this? How do you act and react to different things when you're on the call with a customer? Those are things that we that I think everyone has challenges with.
Well, you guys just acquired TD Ameritrade too, right?
That's very true. A very large acquisition for Charles Schwab. So during this whole thing, we also bought a very large organization, and we're in the process of transitioning that now.
Now, I'm going to mispronounce it again. Wenatchee?
Yes.
I did it. Now, that I looked at the map. It looks like it's between Seattle and Spokane.
Yeah. So it's right in the middle of Seattle and Spokane. If you're driving over the pass from Seattle to Spokane, or Seattle to Lake Chelan, if you will, a lot of people know Lake Chelan because there's a lot of wineries and stuff. Just on the other side of the Cascade Mountains is where I grew up. I grew up in a smaller town. I was born in Wenatchee, a small town named Casimir High School, or Casimir, Washington. It had we graduated with about 41 people in our graduating class that graduated. And it hasn't gotten much bigger since then. Wenatchee's grown, and some other areas have grown, but very small town, kind of I consider as close to the heartland. I grew up with snow skiing 15 minutes away, hunting, fishing, water skiing, all on the Columbia River. Just a beautiful place to grow up. And one of those places where you could leave the house at 6 a.m. during the summer and show up back home at 7 p.m. and your mom didn't even wonder where you were.
Right.
at the age of 10. And then that's kind of how we grew up.
When the street lights come on, you're supposed to come home.
Yes, and before then, we don't want to see you. That was right? Back when I was growing up, right?
Oh yeah, that was mine too. I grew up really small town back in Northwest Illinois, and about a half a mile away from my house was the trailer park, and they had these really great big bushes all over the place. And we used to play hide and seek back there for hours, and then all of a sudden you look up and go, "Oh no, it's 8:30 at night. I'm supposed to be at home." So but those were the best times, man. I look at I got a little kid, Johnny. He's 2 years old, and it's interesting to watch him learning, and he learns so fast on that iPad. Yeah. It's just unbelievable at 2 years old, just scrolling and doing all the things that they do. And, I've watched some different shows about the social networking and all these things. It scares the hell out of me for what's coming for these kids. And, I just want to make sure that I've got him out of the house as much as possible so we can enjoy all those things that you and I grew up doing.
And finding the right place with the right people is always, surround yourself and like you and I have talked about, surrounding yourself with the few people you can really trust and the few people you can count on, and then it becomes easier to say, yeah, go to Mike's. I know Mike, go here, and because you just know that they're the right people for your family and for your kids, and that's today. Sometimes that's a little hard. I personally think that the technology age is something that is a huge value to children. I think the learning curve is much faster because of it. I also think the social skills that they don't gain from that technology is where I think later on in life will have the chance of unless we do a good job as parents to make sure that they get that experience is that's what they're going to be lacking. It's great to learn early. It's also great to learn what it's like to skin your knee when you ride a bicycle, and build a ramp that you should have never built, that your friends tell you or dare you to jump off of, and you wreck yourself and hurt yourself. There's that aspect of life.
I remember one time I was across the street from my house. There was this large building, and it had a really awesome ramp that I would jump my bike off of. And one time the bike seat fell off, and I just racked my nuts so hard on that thing. Just laying there. It's one of those things as a boy, you will never forget that pain.
You never want to see it again.
Ever.
It's growing up in that kind of world. It's similar experience. We had cows when I was growing up, raised 4 or 5 cows, just enough to it was a small ranch. And my dad wanted to teach me the value of an electric fence, and I was probably 6, and he taught me the value of electric fence by peeing on it, and that was probably one of the thanks, Dad, but it taught me a lesson. Don't ever touch an electric fence.
And don't listen to your dad all the time either.
And don't listen to Dad, because he could have just said touch it, and I learned just. But it was a neat experience.
Oh, that's
Looking
great.
Back, I cried for 3 days, I think. But that was me growing up. That was my dad. So
now, what year did you graduate high school?
87.
Okay, yeah, I was 1990. I knew we were somewhere close to each other. So you're up there in the Seattle area. Were you ever into like the grunge music or any of the Alice in Chains and all that kind of stuff?
I was more into the not the grunge as much as I was into the rock, the AC/DC, the Van Halen, the Kiss, those kind of that kind of music I was into a lot more than the grunge scenes. A lot of my friends, I went to some concerts because everyone was going to Seattle and going to concerts, but I never really liked the music as much as they did.
Yeah.
But it was a big part of us growing up.
So I know from talking to you before that you're a Garth guy.
Yes.
Garth Brooks.
And I'm a Garth guy because I think he's one of the few guys you look back on and it kind of changed country music, kind of changed the music landscape. He had a real overall impact to the industry and keeping kind of keeping that when he came on, country music was kind of changing into something more than what I would consider country music. And he made country and Western music cool again.
Right.
And kind of kept true to his faith. And he's a guy that is a faithful, loyal, good human being that I think has kind of transcended his own fame into being kind of one of those guys that's an okay guy. And not just a great performer, but in my life and the lessons I've learned, it's more for me about what you present yourself. Everyone puts on their shoes one foot at a time. And the minute you lose sight of that, or one leg at a time, and as soon as you lose sight of that, you kind of lose what you're all about. And I think he's one of the few people that have kind of kept that in his career.
Yeah, I got a guy, Blake Pelletier is going to be on the podcast here in a few weeks, and he's the CIO over at a company here in San Francisco. He's a big Garth guy too. He's a buddy of mine. And he and his wife went out to Las Vegas and saw him play that acoustic show where it was just him and a guitar. Yeah, and they were like in the second row.
Insane.
And said it was just one of the best shows they've ever seen. And he was just so good at telling stories and just going through and just doing an amazing show, an intimate show for everybody. And, Blake's probably told me about it 1,000 times.
He doesn't have to do any of that. That's the best part about him. He doesn't have to do any of that. That's what makes Garth.
Yeah. Well, as an entertainer, you almost have to do it. My wife asks me all the time, because I'm a singer, drummer. She goes, well, when's this whole band thing going to be done? I'm like, sorry, babe. It's in the blood. You got to go out, almost like this True Ambition podcast. This is something that I put together to help people. I enjoy helping people. And one of the things that artists and musicians love to do is to go out and make people smile and make them have a better day than they would have otherwise. And that's when I think of a guy like Garth Brooks, that's what I think of, because my wife loves Garth Brooks as well. And, some of those songs, they just kind of take you back to those moments back in the 90s where it was just a little easier time for all of us.
It was. And life was a lot simpler. The less we know, sometimes life becomes more simple. And easier to kind of deal with.
Now, what kind of student were you?
I was what I would consider I never had to struggle in high school. I always got crappy grades because I never studied for anything. I would say I was a B plus, but I never had to study a day in my life. My sister hated my guts. My family hated my guts because I just didn't have to work that hard. When I got into college, I applied myself and it got a lot easier. But I would have never been able to go to college out of high school because I had absolutely no ambition for school. I was always different than what school offered me. So I don't think I was a good student. I think my dad spent more time in high school my senior year than I did, trying to get me out of trouble. I had a lot of fun, but not a great kind of student, if you will.
Yeah, I was a horrible student. I was the procrastinator who would wait till the last minute to do anything. And, I don't think that some people are ready for it until later on, or just, I didn't have that drive back then like I do now, where I was like, you can actually see why I should work hard to get to a certain point in my life. That just wasn't even in my head at the time. I was that dreamer that was thinking about other things than studying or listening to a teacher give a lecture or something like that. I'm like, I got bigger things. I got bigger fish to fry, bro.
I can tell you how many times I would say, what does knowing what kind of cloud is in the sky have anything to do with what I'm going to do with my life? I would think that in high school, which was, when you look back on it, it was probably a little advanced for me to even think those kind of thoughts. Which is good, but meaning you're thinking about future and not just thinking about the moment. But I was the same way. I had a hard time understanding the value of what they were trying to get me to learn. Like home ec, I was great at. Shop, I was great at because it was active learning of functional kind of hands-on stuff.
Right.
And I loved it.
Yeah, that you were interested in. Yeah, mine was the same. If it was band and choir, I was all about it. Others I was just like, I couldn't be bothered. And, that says, I'm not sure what that says about me, but that's who I was at the time. So
who made us, right?
Now, thank you so much for your service. Did you go into the service right out of high school?
Yeah. So I graduated in June and was in the Marine Corps in boot camp around the 10th of December that year.
And what was boot camp like?
Hell. But so fun. For me, Marine Corps boot camp is in the 80s, late 80s was an absolute living hell. The rules were not the same. They could do pretty much what they wanted to do to you, and you had no stress card, you had no timeout, you had no rules as to kind of what they could do and what they couldn't do. There was no real way of turning people in. I remember just and part of it was because I knew that they couldn't break me, so I never allowed them to kind of break me. So all they wanted to do was break me, kind of thing. So I remember I was in charge of the platoon for a while, and every time you get done eating, you go and you put the rest of the platoon in formation, and then you come back and you say troops ready for whatever after chow, and then you do a pivot and walk away. And they always kept their cover, which is their DI drill instructor hat, on the edge of their chair. And that's the most sacred piece of equipment in the Marine Corps ever. You never mess with the DI's cover, ever. And I turn and I knock a sucker on the ground. And they're all sitting with all 10 of the drill instructors from the different companies, not just my platoon. So they spent about 10 days passing me around to the different drill instructors for me to do bends and thrusts and workout for them, to every one of the drill instructors. And it was, for me, that was hard, but it was fun. And I earned a lot of respect because they didn't break me. And by the end, they did what they needed to do. They transitioned me from being kind of a smart ass into someone that could be a good Marine if I was allowed. And I wasn't ready for that when I went in. I wasn't ready for the discipline. I wasn't ready for that. And physically, it just wasn't that much of a challenge, but emotionally, it was very, very different, very hard.
And that's what they do, right? Is they need to bring you in and break you down to build you back up to be part of the team? Is that what it is, or part of the Corps?
They're not making you a person. They're not fixing you as a person. They're making you a Marine. And they were really, really good at it back then. So it was, I look back on my military career a lot, and everything was for a reason. And I learned so much about who to be and who not to be. Boot camp was tough, but it was tough for all the right reasons.
So when you got out of boot camp, was it the right time where you went right off to Desert Storm, or did you have some time before?
So I had some time. I went to Okinawa, Japan, was in 1st Tank Battalion at Camp Pendleton. Little area, Los Flores is where the tank battalion was, and got pretty good training on the M60 A1 tank. And went to Okinawa once, came back from Okinawa. We were on a float up to Seattle, actually, kind of every year they went up to Seafair up in Seattle. They have a military thing that goes up there, and I was picked to go up there to display a tank. And we were up there, and they said, don't leave the Seattle area in case we get recalled, whatever. Of course, I call my dad. My dad comes from Wenatchee. We're driving over to Wenatchee. We stopped to get gas, grab a newspaper, and Saddam Hussein had taken over Kuwait. So, and they've been trying to call me. So I made it back, got on ship, went back, and by the time we landed, we were on a plane to Saudi Arabia.
Wow. So I had a high school friend who also fought in Desert Storm, and he and I talked a little bit, and I don't think that we, as the public, had a clue what was going on over there for you guys and girls and what you had to go through. What was your job in Desert Storm?
So my job was tanks, everything related to tanks. Loader, gunner, driver, tank commander, maintenance guy, chow getter, you name it. It was all Marines are kind of everything. What our life was like was we would spend between 20 and 25 days in the desert, no running water, no heated food, no cover, no showers. And every 20 days or so, we would go from there back into the rear where they had some stuff set up where we get showers and get to eat, a couple of really good meals and things like that. And then we go back and we spend about 4 hours in there, and then we go back. And we did that for almost 7 months.
Wow.
And in about 6 months while we were between advanced party and by the time the war actually started. And we moved a few times and got repositioned a few times, but most of our time was spent playing cards, maintaining the tank, trying to realize what the future was going to had for us, and hearing stories about how advanced the tank battalions for the Saddam Hussein army were, and all of the scary thoughts that come in your mind related to what we're about to face, hoping, not many of us would say it out loud, but hoping that there would be some kind of diplomatic, solution to the whole thing, but fearing the worst, and spent most of our time waiting for the next mail run to see if we got anything from our family or friends, whether it's a card or foot powder, whatever you get, anything. And we'd get mail probably once a week. And that was a big time for us. So that's what a lot of the time spinning up to the storm was, in Desert Shield, and just getting to know people really well. We'd have a once a week, we called it Dr. Pimple Popper. And living in the desert that dirty, you have a lot of things that grow on you that normally grow on you, being as filthy as you are, and living on a tank. You're living next to a tank or on a tank. And we'd have one guy that get all dressed up, and we'd throw money in a pot, and then one guy would pull out his K-bar and pop pimples on another guy's back. That was entertainment. It's scary to think that was what we did to entertain ourselves. That and scorpion fights. We'd all collect scorpions through the week and through the months, and we have different scorpions, and we bet on the scorpion fights and play a lot of spades, a lot of hearts. But anything to not think about the situation you're in.
Man, that had to be scary.
Scary, and you don't think of it. And I look back on it a lot. You're a jarhead. You're trained for this. You're ready for it. You know what you know, and you trust the people around you. You aren't afraid in the sense when you're around everyone. You get afraid when you call in your rack at night and you miss your wife, or you miss your kid, or you don't know what's going on at home, or you didn't get a letter that week. It's not afraid of as much the known. It's more of the fear of what you don't know, what you're missing, what things are happening around you, what the other battalions doing, or the tanks are doing, or where they're at with Kuwait, because they keep you in a position where just enough to do your job, because they don't want you to think about much other than getting in a tank and operating a tank, doing it the best you can, and making sure everything works the way that it should work, including your brain. So the hardest, scariest part was the nights when you crawled into your rack or into your sleeping bag and you wondered what tomorrow would be like.
Yeah, the next question I was gonna ask you is like, how much information do they give you? I mean, is it just enough to keep you in the know a little bit about what you're going to be doing next, or is it just you sit there and wait?
So you have operational security all the way through, meaning you can't. If I write a letter to my wife, or I get on a phone with my wife and I say, "Hey, we're moving 15 miles east next week to get closer to Y," and for some reason that line is bugged, or that my wife tells a friend over a phone call and something happens. So they don't tell us much at all on the ground. There's certain people that know a lot, but they don't tell us much on the ground because they don't want to put us in a position to where we say something and next thing you know, we're giving up operational secrets that we don't even know we're giving up. So just enough to keep us informed. When's the next time we're refueling? When we're moving, not even where we're moving, when we're moving, when to be ready to move, when chow is, when you get haircuts, keeping you busy enough to not think about some of those things, and moving enough to where you don't realize that you're basically stagnant waiting for something big to happen. So just enough to make it dangerous. And then as we rolled up to a move or something, or the war, you would have more discussions because we're basically far enough out in the field where we weren't going to get any letters out or get any phone calls. It was kind of going to happen, but we didn't necessarily know it was going to happen. We realized it was real when the first planes flew over and the first bombs were dropped in the air war. And we knew it was real, but then it lasted and it lasted. The air war lasted. We thought, maybe they're just going to decimate them all and we don't have to do anything. Maybe our job is done because of the air war. And then the longer it got, the more we realized it was more real.
So I was doing some research and I read up on the Gulf War syndrome. Was everyone exposed to nerve gas?
It's such a hard thing to say, Johnny. I think there were many, many times during the 100 hours that we were what I consider that kind of the 100-hour ground war, where we had unexplainable puffs of smoke that would go up. We'd hit something and a puff of smoke would come out. There were numerous times when there'd be special kind of I forget what they call them, but they're basically nuclear, chemical, biological units on wheels that would go up and take samples and then disappear. And we'd never know why they were there or what they did. So for me, it was, I think Gulf War syndrome is more about the preparation for nerve gas. And I don't know, so the pyridostigmine that they gave you, basically the nerve gas would mess with receptors between your different nerves. And the pyridostigmine was kind of an unapproved drug that they gave you to reduce the effects of nerve gas had you got it. So I don't know necessarily how much of it was related to nerve gas. I have my own personal feelings that there were other things that the military did for the right reasons, but kind of helped cause that. And then sucking 100 hours of oil in the ground war was really, really not good for a lot of people. And what that did to the ground and to the things that we were actually laying on and living in. And in tanks, I was exposed to depleted uranium ammunition. So the Sable round that the tanks are made of, they're made of depleted uranium. So we had never used those because you only use those in combat, and we trained with inert rounds. These were real. And when they loaded us up, when we first went out to the field, I don't think they expect us to sit there that long. And a lot of us, including some of the artillery and other groups, had this type of ammunition that they were sleeping next to and cleaning all the time and being a part of. So I think there's multiple things, Johnny. I don't think it was one thing necessarily that people could say it was just nerve gas.
So are the folks who have like Gulf War syndrome, are they being taken care of right now?
I can tell you from personal experience that if it's hard to explain what Gulf War syndrome is, because it's some people it manifests itself as stomach issues. Some people it manifests itself joint issues as migraines. So it's hard for the people that you talk to at the VA to understand the larger scale. So they want to treat you for your symptom. They want to treat you for what you have. So for me, I had to get diagnosed with 5 or 6 different things. Then a board looked at it and said, wait a minute. And then they came down with the diagnosis. I didn't go in saying Gulf War syndrome. I went in for different things that were wrong with me, and they put it together. And then that's when they gave me the rating for Gulf War syndrome.
Well, I think it would be so hard because all the things I was reading about, there's so many different things that you guys and girls had to go through as far as different symptoms. And I was literally reading, and there's like 17 different symptoms. And I'm thinking, well, how can anybody sit there and try to figure out what's wrong with them when you have all these different symptoms that could be a cold, a flu, a nerve pinch, all these different things.
Acid reflux. It could be 100, or diarrhea, you name it, everything. They all have to be looked at from kind of an outside lens when you go to get diagnosed. And now they have boards that are much more suited to do some of those things. They'll take a record book and say, all right, you've been treated for these 7 things in the last year. But the biggest challenge, John, is so many people that get out of the military don't use the services that the VA really has to offer. It had a bad name for a long time. A lot of people are too tough, too strong, to nothing happened to me. I'm bigger than that. And they don't utilize some of the services that are there. And when they do, they have a bad experience, or they have a long wait, or and if you're employed and you've got insurance at your job, why would I ever go back and put myself through that when I can go to my doctor and it's just taken care of?
Right.
Because they don't always think of the big picture, that it's not just a headache or whatever it is. It's something that is bigger than what they think it is.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll go out and, because another thing too is that it's not just about you as the person who's dealing with it. It's if you can go in and get treated for it, maybe you can help out one of your buddies or your somebody else who might run into the same situation down the road. So you might not just be helping yourself out, but if they can figure out with you and 100 other people that you're all kind of having the same issues, maybe it's going to help everybody else out too.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've been trying to do everything I can to give back to veterans organizations ever since I started getting real help from the VA and from other organizations. And they're finally taking me up on. I'm going to do a couple talks with groups of veterans and offered whatever I can just to sit down with them and kind of say, this has been my plight. This is where I've been, and this is kind of. You're never going to be normal again, what people consider normal, but you can be less broke than what you thought you were, and get through life. And that's what the VA is kind of taking me up on now, which is exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah. I got my uncle, Gary, he was in Vietnam, and I've only heard him a couple times talk about what went on. And it's usually, I know that you've got a kegerator back there in the background. He's got a kegerator in his garage back in Savannah, Illinois. And a couple times when he's had enough drinks where he can actually talk about it a little bit, it's unbelievable what the brave people who defend this country have to go through. Because I've said it before, the biggest thing that I ever had to fight for in my life is a parking spot. Right. And it's because of people like you and because of my Uncle Gary and other people who fight for the freedoms of people here. And for God's sake, if we don't give them and you the help, what the hell are we doing?
And you hit it right on the head. And I'm a firm believer of this. Anybody that, and your uncle's a great example of that. Anybody that's truly been there will never brag about ever being there. They never want to talk about it. The hardest thing in the world to do is talk about it. And the people, they'll talk about, and even me to this day, I'll talk about my experiences after those kind of experiences and kind of what my life turned into as a result of some of those experiences. But it's very, very few and far between that you'll talk about kind of how you got where, because usually there's an event or there's something that got you, or series of events that got you to where you need some kind of help or some kind of acknowledgement of what happened. And the more you can get people to just talk about it, the more you're helping them. And the hardest thing is for anybody to ever say, hey, I understand, because I don't understand the guy that was standing next to me, what he feels. And they were there. I don't know what you feel. I don't know what your head felt. I don't know what your emotions are. I don't know how you handled it. I don't know. And it's hard for people to understand kind of that aspect of it. It's tough.
Yeah, it's amazing what can be done if someone is just willing to talk. And if you've got a willing participant on the other end who is willing to listen.
Just listen.
And you can sit there and it can be a game changer, you know?
I knew you for about a week, and we had probably one of my most, I would say, open conversations about my life than I've had with almost anyone. And that the trick is not someone that's trying to acknowledge, just listen, and you don't find that very often. And that's why I think you and I kind of hit it off in the beginning, because you aren't a person that is interested in fixing. You're interested in hearing, and you're interested in helping. And that may not be fixing. That may just be stopping and listening. And you don't find that in people very often. Usually they don't want to spend the time unless they get something out of it. And that's human nature.
I think the biggest thing that I'm interested in is learning. Yeah. And if I can sit and learn from somebody else who's been through something that I'll never be through, I will never be through. I mean, it's just like the Black Lives Matter. It's about all these different things that are going on right now. I am never, ever going to understand what a black person's gone through. Ever. I'm going to have empathy. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to come up with my own ideas about how hopefully we can work together to make their life and everybody else's life better. And I think it's the same thing with everybody. If we just sit around and talk and have a conversation, so much good can come out of it. But if we're out there breaking into stores and doing all kinds of crap like has happened here in the last 6 months, nothing happens then except for bad things, because nobody's talking. Everybody's yelling and just, this is what I think. This is what I think. I care about what you think, but we have to have a conversation.
I couldn't agree more. And I will never understand the plight of people that haven't experienced the things that I've experienced in my life, but you can't expect me to understand your plight on the same. I will never say that I understand it, but you can't tell me that I should understand it, because I'm acknowledging that I have no idea what you have gone through, what you have dealt with, what you have done in your life. So unless we talk, I can have compassion, I can have love, I can have honesty, I can have openness, I can be your best friend, but I can't ever walk a day in your shoes. No matter what I do, I can't. And listening and talking, and not talking at, but talking to someone, is what really matters.
So how long were you in the Gulf?
I was in the Gulf for about 9.5 months overall, beginning to end. I left in, I think, April, and we got there in, I think, late July, August, I believe, timeframe. But it was probably, looking back on it, it was probably the shortest 9 months of my life, because every day kind of seemed like it was your last. So you lived it like it was its fullest. And it just, the days kind of run in to one another, even before the war. So it was probably the shortest 9 months of my life. It went pretty fast.
So how long were you in? Were you in the service for 4 years, or how long were you in?
9 years and 7 months. So
9 years and 7 months.
Yeah, I did a 6-year tour, and then I did a 3-year tour and did a 7-month extension, because when I re-enlisted, I went into computers. So I had a 7-month training, and then did 3 years of after that training.
So then when you came back to civilian life, what was that transition like for you?
It was easy. For me, it was easy. I got a job in Okinawa, Japan. I had transitioned, like I said, into computers, and Intel Corporation did a job fair in Okinawa, Japan. And I went to the job fair and got a job, got offered a job, more money than the Marine Corps could ever offer. So I was like, yes, I'm out. I'm ready to go. I'm glad I did what I did. I'm ready to get out now. The Marine Corps was changing quite a bit. It was in the mid to late 90s. Different leadership, obviously, in the military was changing. A few drawdowns, a few things that I didn't necessarily like about where the Marine Corps was going. And so perfect timing. Loved when I was in. Loved the guys. Loved the girls. Loved everybody. When I transitioned out, the transition from that to that was not really a transition. I went, landed. 15 days later, I was at work in a fab in Oregon. Unlike most people, I had a skill that I could transition out of and went to work right away. It was the years and the time after that when things slowed down enough that really impacted my life, that really started, the transition became real. And it didn't really become real for almost 10 years after I got out. When in the mid to late 2000s is when my story got really, really ugly, and wasn't proud of who I was, wasn't proud of what I was. And I would either have to change or I'd be dead. So it was a tough time. Getting out was easy. What I never focused on was how damaged I was. I focused on staying busy, keeping my mind busy, staying drunk enough to where I never had to think about it, staying high enough to where I never had to look at anyone. And then it all came crumbling down. I was making tons of money working for a commercial real estate investment company and lost it all overnight.
So so everybody who knows this podcast and you know me, I've been sober 6.5 years, and I had one of those situations back in 2014 where I was at that turning point. And all of us are different, but I was at that point where I was done. Well, I wasn't done. It was at that crossroads where you can either keep going this way, the way you're going right now, or take a left turn or turn completely around and figure something else out. I had so many things in my past that were unresolved or that I wasn't willing to take a real honest look at. Was that the same thing with you, that you were just kind of covering things up and keeping yourself medicated, or what was your situation?
So I switched jobs. So I worked for Intel for a little while and realized that it was too militarized. You couldn't make a change. It was too close to the military for me, too organized. So I went to work for another company, and basically that company in Oregon, I ended up moving to Philadelphia, and I ended up starting the IT organization for a real estate investment company over there. Berwyn Property Group was the name at the time, and very, very successful real estate investment company. Built buildings, and I ran kind of their IT show for quite a few years. And all I did was work and get drunk or high. I never slowed down. I got divorced, lost most of what I had in 2006, got my DUI in 2006, still wasn't willing to really change. But that was really what I considered one of my lowest points. And then I managed to hang on long enough, basically stopping to go and work. I'd go into work at 8. By 10, I was at the bar. By 9 o'clock at night, by 10 a.m., I was at the bar. By 9 o'clock at night, I was still at the bar, and repeat and rinse. And the company tried to give me the right space and all that. And finally they said, you're done. We can't do this anymore. And you're done. And then I went into the real downward spiral of the drugs. And that's what really got me to a point where I didn't know which way was up. I ended up homeless after about 6 months, about 4 months in 2009. And then
hold on a second. What kind of drugs were you using, if you don't mind?
So anything and everything you get from a pill, quite a bit of cocaine, a lot of the hydrocodone, oxycodone, just about anything that anyone had that I could buy. And that's not marijuana, nothing that would slow me down.
Right.
Nothing that would make me relax, only things that would make me, be at my highest.
The interesting part is knowing you is that you are a very hyper person, just the way you are.
Right.
So, I mean, add that in. I mean, did you go off the rails, or did it actually calm you down a little bit? Because I know some people that it'll actually level them out a little bit. What was your experience?
It leveled me out, but I would drink enough to where I would be so far down that it would get me back to kind of where I would normally be. So it's the combination of the booze and the drugs. But if I just did the cocaine at all, it would make me so I could sit down and watch TV at least. If I didn't, I could never sit down and watch a television program because my mind would never stop thinking about anything but bad. So I couldn't let my mind relax. If I did, I imploded. I couldn't exist. And I didn't realize that, John. I didn't realize that was my problem, was the fact that I couldn't look at my past. I couldn't focus on anything related to what got me where I was. And then had a girlfriend named Deborah. She put me on a Greyhound bus from Philadelphia to Washington State. And when I got there, she said, I'll be with you and I'll be with you forever, but you're going to the VA and you're going to get help. And I laughed at her and whatever and thought, and basically blew it off. And a week later, she said, we're driving to the VA and I'm going to sit there with you until you see someone. And went into the VA, sat down with a psychiatrist. Within 30 seconds, she goes, you're getting in your car and you're driving to Spokane. I've never seen someone with unacknowledged PTSD that you have, and wouldn't even talk to me. And basically all the good things in my life started happening at that moment. All the positive things in my life started happening then. And I went 4.5 years or so without touching booze or drugs. Got my life back together, got my children back in my life, got my just everything that I lost. And what it really boiled down to was being willing to look back, being willing to face what got me where I'm a pretty good guy at the end of the day. I don't have to hate myself every day. People like me for who I am. I don't have to try to be anything different. But I'm a hard guy to get along with, and that's okay too. But being hard to get along with has nothing to do with me being afraid of who I am.
Right.
And it's, when I thought about it some, when you die, I don't want 100 names on my headstone. This is a great friend to 3 people. And that's the few things that are important to me, is getting good people around me and being honest about everything in my life.
Well, the great thing about true ambition, which is what this podcast is called, that quote that I used to come up with this comes out of an AA book called 12 and 12. And it says that true ambition is not what we thought it was. True ambition is the profound desire to live usefully and walk humbly under the grace of God. I read that 5+ years ago, and it changed my life. I've never been a big reader. I mostly listen to audiobooks.
Me too.
I can't concentrate enough to sit there and read a book and remember what I read the last 2 pages. But I can have somebody read it to me, and I can understand it all day long and be good with it. But what you just talked about is so important for people to hear, which is, if you've got these voices in your head, if you've got these things going on in your life where things are spinning out of control, and you can't believe that you've gotten to this point where you've lost everything, you're homeless, whatever it is. And I didn't lose my home, but I was morally bankrupt.
Right.
And I didn't know where to go. I had no idea what to do. And as soon as I was willing, you had an angel named Deborah. I had one named Carissa, who was tired of my shit.
Yep.
And just said, something's got to change here. And all of a sudden, as soon as I was willing to do it for myself, I didn't do it for her. You didn't do it for Deborah. You know, you got to do it for yourself. But as soon as you're willing to take a good hard look in the mirror and face the real issues. And the other thing is too, everything that you thought you were going through by yourself, as soon as you start digging into it, you find out there's a whole bunch of other people out there that have gone through the same exact things that you've gone through, no matter how horrific they are.
Yep.
And as soon as you start talking to other people, you not only help yourself, but you don't even try to. You're helping so many other people just by being willing to help yourself.
Yeah, it takes a lot to be where I am in business, to make it where I've made it, and to acknowledge the hardest thing for me to do sometimes is acknowledge where I truly came from. And what I if anybody takes anything out of this discussion is I've been there and I've done that. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Hit me up anytime you want. If you're having a problem, you don't have to be homeless yet. You don't have to. If we've all had hard times, and if you just want to talk and you just want someone to listen, that's all I want to do in my life. And my only ambition for getting through life is to listen, be honest, and offer all of what I am, and accept whatever the other person wants to be. Whoever's fake doesn't have much room in my life. I don't have enough time. But if you ever want to be a part of just talking about certain things, PTSD happens to be mine. But I've been through addiction. I've been through a lot of different things. I've lost a lot of jobs. I've had a lot of great jobs. I have success. I've had a ton of failure. But nobody's better than anyone, and we all have to work hard to make it through life.
Amen, bro.
Amen.
It's so amazing for me to sit here. I just got a little bit of chills because this is exactly what I'm talking about when I came up with the idea to have this podcast. I talked to amazing business people like yourself. I talked to sports figures. I talked to entertainers. Everybody's the same. We're all just trying to get through this crazy thing called life the best way we can. And the most successful people that I've talked to are the people that are just out to help other people. And then all of a sudden, the universe opens up and gives you everything you need.
That's it. If you have any opportunity to help someone and you don't, you're going to look back in your life and say, at some point in your life, it may not be tomorrow, it may not be next week, but at some point in your life, you're going to look back when you need something, and you're going to remind yourself that somebody really needed you. And it's not about money, it's not about time, it's not about. Some people just need to know you're there, and that's what really changed in my life for the last kind of 10, 12 years is listening when there's pain and being there when people need help, and having people around me that I know I can go to when I need help. And that's how we get through life.
So aside from the VA, anybody who's a veteran, police officer, anybody else who's dealt with PTSD or might be dealing with PTSD right now, or you might not know, maybe you're wondering what's going on with you. Are there any other places except for the VA that people can go that you know of?
There's a lot of great veterans organizations. The VFW is a fantastic organization. They have Veterans of Foreign War. They have a lot of experience with it. They have a lot of great experience related to the PTSD and how to get through the VA system. They offer a lot of help when it comes to getting your ratings and getting different things related to the VA. I think they're one of the best. I think the American Legion also has good opportunities. American Legion does a little more marketing than what I really necessarily like. The VFW really does give back as much as they can. And I would say walk into a VA or a VFW anytime you get a chance. as a veteran of foreign war. If you have a problem related, walk in there and there's 100 people
they'll bend over backwards.
That will give everything to make you feel at home. And I would a lot of military veterans organizations that offer a lot of opportunity. In my opinion, not a ton of them offer great PTSD related talks. And that's one of the organizations I'm gonna continue to work for and set up is something that just kind of puts you in a position where if you have PTSD, you can not think about it for a couple of days and relax a little bit. And there's also people that just want to come and talk about their past experiences. So that's one of the things that Veteran Game Changer is going to be as I grow that nonprofit.
Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about that. That's another thing. Veteran Game Changer. Talk about that a little bit.
Real quick, it started back in 2018. I slowed it down when I took the job with Schwab quite a bit. My goal of the organization is to make it a kind of a Make-A-Wish Foundation for veterans, anything and everything. And so it can be a dream of skydiving that we fulfill. It can be a child that has had a father that's passed that wants to see that the Yankees were their favorite team and they want to go sit in the same seats that their dad sat in. Those kind of things that really don't have much to do with PTSD. And then the second side is changing the way you look at life by experiences of PTSD. The experiences we had in the military are great. There's value in all of it. There was a moment that it got dark, and that moment doesn't have to define you. The military, the past military, doesn't have to define you. It can be a part of you, but it doesn't have to be a major part of everything you do. And changing that I am a veteran, therefore I am who I am because I'm a veteran, into I am me, and I am a veteran, but that is not what defines all of me. It's helped me get to a point where I can't necessarily always blame something. I have to pick myself up on my own volition, and that's what I'm going to do a lot with Veteran Game Changer.
Love it. So where can people find that on the web?
Yeah, veterangamechanger.org. It's been out there a while. It doesn't have the best content in the world, but it tells you our story, tells you what we're going to be, and I'll be running as it grows a little bit more and I get a little bit more time to run it. I'll be reaching out to Johnny and other people and making sure you guys all know that where it's at and how to get to it. And
then it's at vpmma.org?
vpmma.org is the Veteran Project Management Alliance.
Okay, great.
I'm also a great part of it, so are you.
And then anybody who's watching this right now who is struggling with addiction, be it alcohol or drug, go anytime to aa.org for Alcoholics Anonymous. They can help you with alcohol, drugs, whatever it is. They can point you in the right direction. You can find phone numbers and other content there to point you in the right direction to get some help. You just have to be willing. So you're a big cigar aficionado.
Yes, sir, I am.
And I like cigars. I wouldn't consider myself an aficionado, but I just had myself a little Arturo Fuente for lunch. Nice. And I saw some smoke billowing up there a second ago. What are you smoking?
I smoke, my favorite cigar is a Liga Privada number 9. I'll smoke the 52s quite a bit, but it's a little heavier smoke than the Arturo Fuente. I'm also a big My Father fan, but I stopped smoking in 2015, and I just started smoking cigars probably a year and a half ago, and it's something that I really, really sit back and enjoy, and gets me out and teaches me something new. So it's fun.
Oh, I love them. We were up in Reno for Carissa's birthday party, and you came up and gave me, I don't know what the smoke was, but I always smoke the lighter ones. That one almost knocked me on my ass.
They're good ones. They're good ones. Yeah. Great smoke. A little stronger, but good flavor.
Well, I always end this podcast the same way, asking the same questions to everybody who's on it. So, being where you've been, knowing what you know now, what is your true ambition? 2 ways. 1, in your personal life, and 2, in your career moving forward?
For me, it's the same in the sense I want to be a servant leader, a servant father. I want to be a servant friend. I want to be always be less than what people think I am in the sense of always approachable. I want to always be the person that you can feel you can talk to. I always want you to know that I will give every ounce available to help in any way that I can. And my ambition is to just let people know that success is possible, even if you have been homeless, underground, underwater, can't breathe, and have no idea what the next breath is going to look like. Success is still possible. And that success comes from trusting, talking, and being open. And that's my ambition, to get that message to more vets and to never have another vet that doesn't want to be on the street ever be on the street because of this thing that we call PTSD.
That's true ambition, baby.
That's it, baby.
All right, man.
Thanks.
Well, I thank you so much for joining us, Cory. I'm sure I'll talk to you soon. And thank you all for tuning in to the True Ambition podcast. We'll see you next time.
The True Ambition podcast is brought to you by IT Avalon. For more information and links to other episodes, please visit www.trueambition.org. Now, go find your true ambition.